Me.
Well, I know we're going to talk about you, but what is it
Well,
that we're going to talk about in the museum?
I guess primarily my activities with the International Parachuting Commission.
Okay.
They call it the IPC now. They used to call it the CIP
Okay.
because it was primarily French then, Commission Internationale de Parachutisme.
Okay. Well, let's start off. First of all, just tell us all your name, and then you tell us when you started jumping,
Okay.
and just a little bit of your history, and maybe one of your license numbers, and how many jumps you did, and stuff like that. So just give us a brief history about you, and then go ahead and tell us what you want to tell us.
Okay. Well, my name is Charles MacCrone, more commonly referred to as Chuck. I started jumping in February of 1962. I jumped until, I think it was 1971, laid off for 26 years, and then in 1997 I started again for a few more years. Ended up with just 1,069 jumps, but for a jumper who back in the 60s, that was a lot of jumps. We didn't make nearly as many back then as guys make now. In '64, I first ran for the board of directors of of PCA back then, and I served, I think it was three terms as Southern Conference director. I was instrumental in development of the Cotton Belt Parachute Council, which was probably, if not the foremost, one of the foremost competition councils in the country at that time. Of course, our activity was strictly style and accuracy.
Don't want that in front of your face when we move it over just a tad. There we
Oh,
go.
okay.
There we go. Perfect. So you mainly did style and accuracy then?
Yeah, that was, back in the East Coast especially, there were attempts at baton passes, but RW was all over on the other side of the country. And then in 1966, the U.S. wasn't able to participate in the World Championships because they were held in Leipzig, East Germany. And we had a tripartite agreement with France and Great Britain, and we did nothing that would give any recognition to East Germany. So we had to skip that world meet. Instead, we went to a meet called the Golden Sands, Zlatny Piasecki, which was held in Varna, Bulgaria. And I was a board member, and a decision was made to allow those board members who wanted to accompany the team to travel with them to Varna. So I was one of the fortunate ones and went along. That was what piqued my interest in international competition. So then in 1967, in the winter board meeting of PCA, I was elected the U.S. delegate to the International Parachuting Commission. And this was a really unique experience because after Lyle Cameron, there were no active sport competitors on the International Commission. Now, the International Commission was charged with the responsibility of developing Section 5 of the FAI Sporting Code. This had to do with parachuting. And there were no competitors on the board. As a matter of fact, to my recollection, Phil Miller was the U.S. delegate right ahead of me, and he had made sport jumps, but I don't recall that he was a competitor. All the other members, it was really an old man's club. Some of these guys had made military jumps in World War II. None of them had made sport jumps, and there were certainly no competitors in the crowd until I came along. And I think if I made the major contribution probably I made to the IPC was the fact that I, as a competitor, was very interested in how the rules affected competition. And I proposed some changes. Primarily, my first proposal had to do with the scoring system that was used for style and accuracy. We for some reason or other, had to award trophies for style and then trophies for accuracy. And then, in order to give away more trophies, we always had an overall. And the overall was a combination of style and accuracy scores. And I could never understand why accuracy jumpers, no matter how good you were, you never got the overall trophies. Your position in style was also your position in overall. Well, this is a glaring discrepancy, to me at least it was. My background was engineering and statistics, so I analyzed all the previous world meets and nationals events and so forth, and came up with what I called the Equislope scoring system. Equislope because I figured the scoring curves for both events should have an equal slope, equal angle. And I sold the idea to the IPC. They approved it. Of course, Lyle Cameron hated me for it because I hadn't passed it through him first. He was head of the competition committee of PCA at the time. Anyway, and then I think what happened was all the Western countries began to realize that there was an activist on the board, on the IPC now, who knew what he was talking about. Not to be patting myself on the back, but I thought I did. So they started sending competitors to represent their countries on the IPC. And then in let's see, that was the meeting in '67. Then I attended the meeting in '68, and in '69, I was elected first vice president of the commission. And then in '70, I was elected president. And my platform primarily had to do, and this was at General Singlob's suggestion, with relative work on the world level. And it just happened to coincide with the request that was made by the free fall exhibition team, the USFET, to make a demo jump at a world meet. And that just, Norm Heaton and I had already started the work on getting RW accepted. And here these guys came along, and it was just perfect timing. They made their demo jump in 1970, and that just made it so much easier for us to push for adding RW as a world competition event, which resulted in the first World Cup at Fort Bragg in '73, second World Cup in South Africa in '74, and in '75 we had the first World Championships in RW. And it was all on my watch, and I'm very proud of that. And that was one of the things, plus Norman Heaton working with all the Western countries. Remember, this is still in the middle of the Cold War. At that first World Championships in RW, there were no nations from the East. It was strictly, RW was strictly a Western event. Boy, has that changed. Anyway, I lost my train of thought here a little bit.
The World Meet and the first RW?
The first World Cups, yeah. Well, this plus Norm working with the Western countries got me reelected as president for 6 years. Now, this kind of broke a mold because the tradition with all of the sporting commissions of the FAI was that the president would serve for 2 years and then be succeeded by his first vice president. Well, what happened when I started getting reelected president, they kept swapping around the vice presidential slots. In fact, they even established a second vice president. And they kept changing around, and I kept staying as president, which was nice because we were able to get a lot accomplished. I established the working subcommittees within the CIP, appointed ILF Ness as the first chairman of the working committee on RW. ILF went on to become president of the FAI itself, and then subsequently, I believe just last year, received the award from the museum. And then in 1975, I believe it was the Russians made a proposal to the governing body, the FAI General Conference, that a commission president could only serve for 2 years, and it passed. So in '76, when I came up for re-election, I had to stand down. I don't know how long that rule lasted, but it wasn't very long because subsequent to that, Uwe Beckmann from West Germany served, I think, for 6 years. ILF Ness, I believe, served for 8 years as president of the CIP. So the rule didn't last long, but it lasted long enough to get me out. Anyway, that was kind of the highlight of my parachuting career, and I never was that great a competitor, but I enjoyed it, and it was certainly my big interest.
Now, for people that might be watching this, can you just tell me a couple of quick things that may have, the acronyms you've been using, what do they stand for? The IPC and the...
Well, the FAI, its work is conducted by commissions.
And what does FAI stand for?
That's the Federación Aeronáutica Internacional, the International Aeronautics Federation. And then the commission having to do with parachuting used to be called the CIP, Commission Internationale de Parachutisme, the French acronym. That has since been changed to the IPC, International Parachuting Commission, which is a lot easier for us to understand.
And your USPA number is?
My USPA membership number is 204.
And your D license?
My D license is 526.
That's just amazing.
Well, the 526 isn't that low a number. We got guys walking around with the sub-hundreds here.
26,000.
20. Oh, yeah, I know. Well, you know, USPA back then, Norman Heaton won't talk about this when he comes in, but I'll say this about Norman Heaton. When he was hired on as executive director of PCA, Parachute Club of America, the first year he came on, we were like $18,000 in debt, the organization was, as a result of the previous year's team training expenses. Now, this is an organization of about maybe 3,500 people. That's a heck of a debt for that small an organization. And within 1 or 2 years, Norman had put us into black. He was our first professional executive director. I mean, we had some good guys in there, Russ Gunby and so forth, but Norman handled the job as a pro, did a great job for us. And then I was subsequently fortunate enough. The second year I was the U.S. delegate to the IPC, to the International Commission, the board decided that the executive director should accompany me, should accompany whoever the representative was, so that in the event the representative were elected president, why, we would still have a vote because he would be the backup. And therefore, from my second year on, Norman always accompanied me. And as it turns out, in the very second year he was there, he became the primary U.S. delegate and did a great job of caucusing the Western countries and got everybody on board. So that's how we were able to get our programs through. We did a great job. I think we brought about a lot of advances on the international scene, although there are more to come. And when I look at the agenda that the International Commission has now, it's not a hobby anymore. It's a job. I mean, we had to be concerned with style and accuracy. My gosh, they've got so many things they're concerned with now. It's just, and it's hard to say what the future's going to be. It's just, the sport is growing so fast, even still. I remember when they were talking about canopy relative work. And I was thinking, God, that's got to be dangerous. And now they've got, 80 of them stacked up there?
If there's one thing that you could tell the people watching at the museum, if they're watching this at the museum, what would you tell them about skydiving? And maybe they're not skydivers, maybe they've just stopped in to take a look at the museum. What would you tell them if they're thinking about giving skydiving a try?
I've done a lot of things in my life. I started scuba diving after I had been into skydiving, and that is such a timid activity. Skydive, to jump out of an airplane, I think it's a spark to your life. First place, you can't believe you did it. And enjoyed it so much. I have watched a lot of people making tandem jumps, and I've ridden up in airplanes where I was going to be jumping with other people, and watch these tandem jumpers sitting up in the back of the airplane and almost feeling sorry for them because, gosh, they must be scared. They didn't ever show it all that much, but then I would see them after they landed, and they were throwing up their hands and, yahoo, I want to do it again right now. It's an exhilaration that I don't know that you can match any other way. It's
awesome.
It's a great thing.
Well, thank you so much.
Great.
Appreciate
That wasn't
it.
all that bad. Whoops.
Whoop, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw this off to the side. That's what we need.